Good day, my name is Dylan Imbo. Thank you very much for stopping by and joining us on the Global Trade Tutor YouTube channel today. In today's video, I'll be talking about what no one tells you about to source for buyer, or how to source for reliable supplier. What no one tells you about how to source for local supplier for export, or how to source local supplier for export product. How to source local supplier in export business. How to source local supplier in export business. So in this particular episode, in the initial episode, I talk about quality and consistency. In this episode, I'll talk about reliability and capacity. Reliability and capacity. Now, you know, it's one thing for you to get a supplier who is able to supply you for the initial time. He's able to supply you the initial period. But the question is, how reliable is it? And what is the capacity he has to deliver? How reliable? Remember, as an exporter, you don't need to be a manufacturer. I export different products, and I don't have a factory. I don't need to be a manufacturer. And let me tell you that, look, a number of suppliers in the world do not produce what they are supplying. They are pretty much a merchant. They buy from A and sell to B. They buy from A and sell to B. And as a manufacturer, this principle also applies if you are getting raw materials to sell abroad, or raw material to produce, to manufacture your goods. Reliability and capacity. You need to assess whether the supplier can handle the volume that you require, both currently and when you scale. So currently, what's their daily volume? Weekly volume, monthly volume. How much can they deliver? Now, it's possible that the supplier cannot deliver large volume now, not because it doesn't have the factory or the expertise, but because it doesn't have the funding. Now, you can work with him on that funding. What is the production capacity? Does he have a factory that can do large volume, even though it doesn't have the finance, which you can work out together? Or it doesn't even have the factory to produce, or it doesn't have enough network of suppliers, because if you are a manufacturer or you are an exporter, you are buying from other people, from a merchant who has local buying agent, or who has farmers, or who has miners that he's going to buy from to be able to sell to you. Now, because he has miners that to be able to sell to you, if he doesn't have enough, it affects you. If he doesn't have enough local supply, it affects you. Now, this is very important, because at the end of the day, that impacts on your own ability to deliver to your own supplier, to your own buyers abroad. So assess whether the supplier can handle the volume of orders you require. What, from the record of this supplier, what is the highest volume he has delivered? So let's say he has delivered 1,000 metric tons in a month. Here you are, you need 3,000 metric tons in a month. If he has not done 3,000 before, but he has done 1,000, the question is this: if he has more money, will he be able to deliver more? Does he have the network of supply? Does he have the capacity to be able to supply? Check this out. You know, one thing you don't want to do is to disappoint a buyer, bro. You know, I remember having a meeting sometimes ago with a major buyer of a particular product in Europe. It was an online meeting. And he said his experience with Africans, particularly Nigeria, when it comes to supply of product, that he doesn't have issue with the first transaction. You only have issue with the subsequent transaction. That the first transaction, maybe they already produced the sources. When they now get to the second one, third one, or it begins to increase, becomes an issue. And that speaks to reliability. Reliability. How reliable is the supplier? Evaluate their track record for meeting deadline and fulfilling order without issues. You know, if a supplier is not very reliable, if you must deal with that supplier, you must factor in that lack of reliability. Let me give an example. Because sometimes, even though the supplier is not very reliable, if you can manage the situation, you might be able to still engage them. But if you have option of the one that can be reliable, of course, you have to drop them and look for the option, go for the option that will be reliable. But let's, for example, I have a supplier that if he tells me, it's a lady, if he tells me that he will be able to deliver in 3 weeks, I'll factor in another 2 weeks because it's into production. Now, sometimes it's not because she doesn't want to deliver. Sometimes she also finds herself in a situation where a machine have issue, one problem here, one issue or the other, sometimes that she doesn't have control over. But because I've dealt with her for many years, I already factor that into my plan. So that if she disappoints, I don't disappoint my buyer too much because I factor in the disappointment factor. I already put into consideration the disappointment factor of my supplier. But like I said, if a supplier will not be able to deliver, if he consistently do not deliver, then if you have option, go for the option. The idea is this: ensure you put into consideration this reliability factor, not just the capacity to deliver, being reliable. If you say it will deliver in 3 weeks, it's going to deliver in 3 weeks or less. Evaluate their track record for meeting deadline and fulfilling orders, and ensure that that is a guiding principle in your decision. Always remember, there are some factors, for those of us, if you are going to be from Nigeria, there's something they call Nigerian factor. But Nigerian factor, they mean peculiar issues about Nigeria that sometimes affect businesses and does not make them to perform. Now, if you are supplying a Nigerian abroad, he can understand. He's a Nigerian. He's an African. He understands the peculiar issues. But if you are supplying a Caucasian, an Asian that operate in an environment where things work, what you are saying will not make sense. How do you explain that? You tell them you have loaded, you share the pictures, and you are moving to the port, and you tell them today is Monday, the vessel I'm joining is coming on weekend, so I should be shipping by weekend, and I've loaded on Monday to move it to the port. And 2 weeks after, you are telling them you have not entered the port. 2 weeks, you have not entered the port. It doesn't make sense. What's wrong? Well, you've loaded it on the container, it's on the truck. How on earth will you tell them you have not entered the port? It doesn't make sense. But it's a possibility in the Nigerian environment. Even though it doesn't make sense, it's a possibility in the Nigerian environment. So please factor in those factors, or Nigerian factors, or whatever factors, so that at the end of the day, you don't disappoint your buyer too much. My name is Dela Yemibo, and I'm your expert doctor, and I'm signing out. Thank you very much for joining us as we go through this series on what no one tells you about how to source for reliable supplier in your export business. Thank you very much. See you in the next video, and bye-bye.